Okay, so I'm going to hand this first one to Dr. Vega. It says for anyone, but 17 to 31 range elevated CRP for 3 years with an A1C of 6.1 to 6.3. Primary care sent it to a rheumatologist, and he's finding nothing wrong, no symptoms, eating low carb. Should they continue to try to find the inflammation or just accept it and move on?
If it is working, I don't see a reason to keep. Keep measuring, of course, but I don't see a reason why something should be stopped if it is working. I see success there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about Miss Cindy?
No, I was just going to say, how's the person feeling? How are you feeling? Are you feeling full of vitality and energy, and or are you feeling bad? If there's something causing a big inflammatory response, and you've got some insurance, you can continue to explore it, but I don't think I'd change. Do you know what your CRP was prior to starting your current eating plan? I heard a voice. Yeah, so it could be half or a third of what it was, and it could just be, that it takes time. We have to be patient. It's so easy to want a quick fix. What would you say, Mitzi?
I think you have to stop. You shouldn't chase the number. It's reductionist thinking to only focus on the one number. You need to look at in totality. How do you feel? What are you experiencing? Are you symptomatic? So it's not just about the numbers, but boy, some people really like to focus on the numbers, and I understand why. You have to have some data, but don't.
Yeah.
The next question is, does drinking too much water without electrolytes affect your kidneys negatively?
Not so much your kidneys. I would say it could make you suffer from some symptoms, muscle cramps, also constipation, headache. Every time you are doing low carb or keto or a carnivore, you need to supplement salt. It is important. And the grandfather of keto, as Dr. Westman was saying, he says 12.5 grams of salt. That's about 2.5 teaspoons every day extra of what you normally take. And that will create the balance. The reason why is because every time you have high glucose and high levels of insulin, there's a channel that we will take the sodium from your blood out of your system through your kidneys. And when you're doing that, you need to get that sodium back. Sodium is completely necessary. And something that doesn't happen with a high carbohydrate diet, because those channels are almost closed and you keep that sodium circulating. But having a lot of water without sodium is not a very good symptoms will show up. For sure.
Yeah. And I'll just say that sodium, I want you to go out and drink the ocean, but sodium is something that's in many ways self-regulated. You just can't keep eating something that's too salty. You'll push away from it. And it is a vital electrolyte. We won't go into the sodium, potassium pump and all that stuff, but if anybody's a hunter or knows a hunter, what do they put out to draw the animals out into the field? Salt. Oh, okay. So I guess they've got a problem with their... Anyway, so it's very important, and you'll self-regulate. And you'll get thirsty if you've had too much salt, and then you'll drink water and... Anything? She's good.
It's funny you said the thing about the animals. Do you know they found the Redmond mine? The way they found the mine is that the animals were all congregating around that area. And then when they started digging, that's how they found the Redmond mine. And I can tell you, as a high school sports official in South Florida, where kids get dehydrated all the time, you see these kids, especially like in August when our football season starts, these kids start drinking water and water and water and water and water, but they're not doing any sodium. And for the first 2 or 3 weeks of our season, the games take an extra hour because they all go down cramping. Because what they're actually doing is dehydrating themselves more. They're drinking water, but they're losing all of the sodium in the electrolytes because it's 110 degrees on an AstroTurf field in August. So, and they're sweating it all out. So, okay, so the next question is actually for Rachel and I. Oh, this is a good one. How do you convince keto loved ones to go on keto when you know it's going to help them? You don't. You can't. Here's the thing. We talk about this on our channel a lot, and I'll let Rachel chime in because we did force one person in our life, her mother, and she went down kicking and screaming. But most of our loved ones, our family, our coworkers, our doctors have seen us try every diet in the world. And for them, this is another fad that you're going to quit in 60 days. And so they're just waiting for you to quit, to go, I told you it wouldn't work. The only way you're going to get a loved one to actually do this is to have you do it, have results, and be consistent and still be doing it. It may take 2 years, and it may never happen. So
I love what Kim Howerton has said in the past, you know, be the lighthouse and not the foghorn. And if a lighthouse, you know, you build it and it's there forever. It's the thing that you look for. It's the landmark. Be the landmark in someone's life that, you know, maybe they kick and stream and they come back in 5 or 10 years, or they're just watching you and you just are consistent. You're just boring old consistency. You know, we do that in parenting, right? We're just boring old consistent parents. You can always trust that mom's going to nag you, whether you're 9 or 90, right? We're the same. Be the same, so that when they are ready to even maybe try it, you'll be there. You'll be there still. I think the consistency is going to be key. The next question is, if I'm having difficulties getting 7 uninterrupted hours of sleep because of travel, shift work, etc. Is sleeping later in the day, such as a long nap that would be your total would bring your total near to 7 hours of sleep, be beneficial or harmful?
Good question. Sleep is huge, obviously. I know tracking sleep helps, but morning sunshine, you know, starting your circadian rhythm, a few people talk about sunshine, is good. I think a nap, if you get a full sleep cycle, is great. Huberman Lab has a great free resource for a sleep toolkit you can look up, and just going over different tips there. But just how you start your day, how you end your day. But if you're working weird hours, night shift, whatever. Yeah.
I did night shift in ICU. I did night shift in ICU for 6 years. And it was tough. It was tough to get. I had 2 kids. One was a type 1 diabetic. It was tough. And it really does impact you. So I slept when I could. I'd even put the car in park at a red light and be thankful I could get 2 minutes. I'd nap. I'm not kidding. And I know that people behind me would honk, and I'd put it in drive and drive home. So shift work is hard. Do the best you can. And if you need to sleep, I'd lay down and sleep. Get what you can.
Yeah, and I would add, if you want to do it in a way that is going to really help you, it should be 90 minutes, because that's a whole cycle. Mm-hmm. We have between 4 and 5, sometimes 6 cycles, 90-minute cycles. And if you're going to take a nap, the ideal would be 90 minutes. If you wake up after 45 minutes, you might feel refreshed, but not as refreshed as you would with 90 minutes. I know it's a long time, but if you want to get a good result, that's probably the best.
Okay, next question we have is, how do you lose visceral fat with a BMI of 20, 75 years old? Should they eat more fat? Let you guys take this one.
Well, Dr. Eric Wisman was talking about this exact thing. With our patients, it's incredible, but when they come with stage 3, hepatic steatosis, which is accumulation of fat, after 6 months of doing keto, their liver will clear up completely, confirmed by the ultrasound. So why do we get fat in the liver? It is because of the conversion of fructose into fat that will start to accumulate. when you stop fructose and you let yourself to use the fat that you have accumulated inside, even in the outside or in the inside, it will start to use it, including the one in the liver. So
You should expect a little bit of visceral fat. I don't think any of us have zero around the organs.
yeah, exactly. But people with level 3 go to level 0, and they basically reverse it after 6 months.
I used to work in the OR, and one of the things, if they were going to do bariatric surgery with a laparoscope, is they'd have the patient fast for a couple of days, because just those couple of days would reduce that fatty liver down in size enough that they could get in with the scope more easily. So you're exactly right from experience with bariatric surgeons. It doesn't take that long for that, but you will probably always have some level of visceral fat. I'd like, it'd be interesting how much, but some level. Yeah.
Next question. What is metabolic flexibility? And what are your thoughts on carb cycling?
I'm gonna let you handle that one. The athlete.
Well, metabolic flexibility, I started actually testing people in 2005 on this. And so we could test people at rest and during exercise. So metabolic flexibility is burning fat, ideally as your main fuel source, and carbs as your backup fuel tank. So we could test this. So metabolic flexibility, or Dr. Mindy Pelz talks about metabolic switching, so you can switch back and forth. So training your body to be fat burners, as Dr. Westman just talked about, and then be able to have the ability to switch to carb metabolism. So that's why people talk a lot lately about having a carb refeed day, which can be dangerous for a lot of people, not good for them. So it depends on the person if they're an athlete, but if you are a carb addict and have other issues, it's not a good idea. So it depends on the person. And so it's more, I don't think ideal for most people. This is more specific on if they should. But ideally, metabolic efficiency, we can test you at rest and during exercise or walking, see are you using fat as your fuel source, and then work from there, figuring out how to be more fat burner, as you are all doing, eating more fat and protein and keeping the carbs down.
I'd like to see what Dr. Vega
Oh, okay. Yeah, I just wanted to add to it. So we've had subscribers message us and say, hey, what do you guys think about carb cycling? Like Danny Vega does some carb cycling. And my answer is, do you look like Danny Vega? Okay, or do we look like Robert Sykes? We don't need carbohydrates. Robert does all of his bodybuilding with 0 carbs. So we don't, obviously, if you go take a look at him, we don't need carbs to build muscle, but you have to look at what you're doing. Like, we were just talking about the fact that, like, for a lot of us, if you're a carbohydrate addict, introducing carbohydrates is a dangerous proposition. I know for me, like, it is a dangerous proposition that I just have no desire to go that way. My body knows how to use sugar. If I were to introduce some sugar, I may get sick for a few hours because I haven't had it in 6 years. But believe me, it'll quickly do that. But it's going to take a lot longer to go back to fat.
Yeah, we don't do that. we don't carb cycle. The reason we may suggest that we might do that when somebody comes to us with that question before they begin, we can eliminate that barrier from the very beginning, and they have the idea that.
Just move your hands up.
And then when they learn all the stuff and they start doing it, they say, why would I want to go back to have those carbohydrates?
That's good.
And eventually, if somebody wants to do it, what we do is we teach them first the CGM so they can have a feedback and know what really means carb cycling. And once they see those graphs, they don't want to do it anymore. And the other thing that we teach them is just take a good picture of yourself and measure after. If you decide to carb cycle, see the difference. And if your body starts to see, if you start to see a difference in your pictures, you might not be getting the best results. And also, if you start having sugar cravings, that's a signal that you should stop them.
As someone who truly, the simple sugars and the processed foods, If I was an alcoholic, would you ever ask me, do you ever alcohol cycle?
Yeah, I was just
You-
thinking
yeah,
that.
do
I
you
was
ever-
thinking, or
do you
a
ever-
cigarette cycle.
You know, do you ever do that? For me, it would be dangerous. Others might be able to handle it, but for me, it's a slippery slope. So I just don't.
And my question would also be, what are you carb cycling with?
Yeah.
Are you using junk food, or are you like Danny Vega? We talk about he's using sweet potatoes and jicama. Like there's a huge difference in what you're gonna possibly use for that. And I will tell you, in an experiment recently, Rachel consumed 100 grams of pineapple chunks, which by the way is 4 chunks that big. Her blood glucose shot up over 100 points and stayed there for 3 hours.
Yeah.
So.
It's
This was an
a little.
experiment. I mean, and I remember in when we were getting ready to film the video, she was like, "This is not. It's a little bit. It's just a little bit. How bad could it be?"
serious.
So I got one here, and we're gonna actually hand this one to Mitzi. It says she's got a study that shows that MCT oils are causing leaky gut, and so when you talk about studies.
Right. So first of all, I haven't seen the study. However, the premise behind the study is intriguing, and it makes sense because we know MCT oil powder can cause some type of intestinal distress. So I wouldn't rule it out immediately, but I need to see the study in order to make an intelligent comment about it. But it makes sense. The initial premise makes sense, and going from there, I would need to get into the medical library and look at what is out there.
And that's different than it giving you diarrhea.
Yeah.
That's not leaky gut. That's diarrhea.
Right. But we know that it has an effect in that general area. It can. Yeah.
You know, certain people, but it's studies.
But yeah.
If-
you're gonna get diarrhea.
If my triglycerides are lower than my HDL, what is the next most important number I need to be concerned about?
Yeah. Go.
Could you repeat the question?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Which one is lower than which?
If the trigs are lower than the HDL, what is the next most important number I need to
Okay.
be concerned about?
Well, I would focus on long-term glucose, and also C-reactive protein being low. Those are the ones that we focus, and also vitamin D, 25 hydroxy vitamin D, which is very, very important to maintain your inflammation levels in a lower level. So the vitamin D, glucose A1C. Sometimes you have a higher measurement, and it might set off your alarms. But if you are checking yourself with the CGM, you will see there's a difference between what you keep during the day and what that A1C is telling you. So, and I asked this to Dr. Bollick one time, and he said, well, we have a colleague who is a triathlete, and he has always his A1C in between 6.1 and 6.3, but his measurements with the CGM are 85 all the time. So what he said was, we think that since we work with a lower inflammation or lower levels of inflammation due to the ketones, the red blood cells might live longer, so they get exposed to more glucose even though it's low. And instead of, I don't know, let's say instead of 100 days, they will last 120 days. And then you get more exposure to glucose, which saturates them a little more, and it'll show up with an A1C higher than normal. But in the case that they're reading at the same time with the CGM, if the numbers are right, then there's nothing to worry about. But yeah, I would say those tests.
Think about fasting insulin. I think that's a good thing. If they've never had a fasting insulin.
Yeah, of course, the fasting insulin and all those tests as well.
Because you might have a fasting blood sugar of 90. You might have a fasting blood sugar of 90, but if it takes, you want your fasting insulin typically 10 or lower. And if it takes 25, if your fasting insulin is 25, your pancreas is just having to pump out the insulin to maintain it. So a decrease in your fasting insulin, the reduction in insulin is a key trigger to reducing all that inflammation. So that takes time, typically.
Okay, this next one it's a little complicated, so I'm going to see if I can figure out what they're trying to say. It's really more for like a Dave Feldman or even from yesterday's talk with Dr. Boz, but we'll see if we can go there. It says, where does your LDL get oxidized? Is it in the bloodstream? And how can you reduce your LDL without taking statins? So, do one of our medical professionals want to handle this one?
Yeah,
Mitzi?
she's going to take a pass. No.
Dr. Vega?
No.
We're going to pass this one on to one of our physicians during the week.
Yes. People that really study lipids or
Yeah.
lipidologists.
Or go find Dave Feldman. I'm sure he's around. Or Dr. Boz. Again, they're trapped on a boat, so just track them down. They can't really go
Sweetly.
anywhere. Yes, sweetly. Not at the urinal either.
No. If you see Dr. Boz and she's singing along with Mamma Mia, let her finish the song.
Yeah.
So this has Dr. Vega's name on it, and it says, please explain how the Bible tells us we should take care of our bodies, which he's given us.
Okay. I guess this refers to faith, which I didn't get enough time to get into. It was part of my presentation. I actually left like 12 slides out. Today, I had them in my presentation, but I couldn't get to them. Faith, for me, is the ability to see the invisible, believe in the incredible, to achieve what masses consider impossible. And that's a state of full belief. And that's one of the clues for success that we teach our patients. You need to have faith in what you're doing. Don't listen to what that influencer said. Don't listen to what that other influencer said. If you have certainty that what you're doing is going to work, focus your mind and have faith in it. Otherwise, what you're doing is equal to getting in a car, starting the engine, hit the accelerator, but the brakes at the same time. That's called paralysis by analysis.
Yeah.
And then you're not moving. So here is how we can tie this concept of having faith and allowing things to happen to scientific fact. Here it is. You guys ready? There's this book. It's called Molecules of Emotion by Dr. Candace Pert. I believe she passed away in 2013. What she found and she discovered scientifically is that whenever you have emotions, which we might think just stay here, right? You create molecules that equals that emotion that you're focusing on. And those messages are sent to the rest of the body, and every cell in your body has receptors for those molecules. So that's basically saying that your brain tells the rest of the body what's the reality. Have you guys heard about epigenetics? That's the environment having influence over our genes. Well, what happens every time one of those molecules hits a receptor, that receptor will create a signal to promote the production of new proteins and change the physical reality of that specific cell. And we're talking about all the cells. So whenever you are with faith, you're in a faithful state, you are creating that in every cell of your body, and then you're going to have a different result. So here's the catch. Let's say, for example, I feel frustrated and really angry because I'm doing everything I can and I don't see the results. So what goes in my mind, I'm going to stall, right? I am going to stall. That second, I created those emotions and molecules that tell the rest of the system what's the reality for tomorrow. Listen to this. For tomorrow, I'm going to be experiencing what I'm focusing on tomorrow. And what happens if I see the mirror again tomorrow and I see the same thing? I'll go again. I'm in a stall. I'll feel frustrated. I don't like this. Emotion then creates the flow of molecules that will tell tomorrow your cells what's going to be the day past tomorrow. And then you see yourself trapped in a vicious cycle. That's where when we have to stop and just focus with faith on the thing that you know you want to achieve. But first you have to have an image and be clear about what are your goals. Otherwise, You're just being blown by the wind with whatever circumstances are coming. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah.
What was the name of the book again and her name?
Molecules of Emotion, Candace Pert. It is a very scientific book, but the take-home message is what I just told you.
I'm out of questions. Do you have any more?
I have one more for me. Says you and your mother lost a lot of weight later in life. Did this result in a lot of loose skin? And if so, how did you deal with it?
Can I answer this for a second?
Okay.
Because I've experienced Rachel, where Rachel lost 100 pounds, calorie restricting at 500 calories. If you don't know this about her, she ate nothing but a cup of oatmeal and a half a cup or a quarter of a cup of Greek yogurt for a year. And she lost 100 pounds. It was 500 calories. For the next year, because she was afraid to gain the weight back, she continued eating it and gained 70 pounds. So for people who say, hey, it's all about calories in, calories out, she's proof that your metabolism will slow down, because it just slowed down to the point where it was afraid it was going to starve to death. When she lost that 100 pounds, the loose skin on her was insane. I mean, she was ashamed of herself. I mean, it was everywhere. So then she gained it back. And now she has a little bit of loose skin for her, but not nearly what she had before. I mean, the fact that she's even willing to walk around and have her legs and arms exposed shows you a lot.
It's definitely a non-scale victory to be in like shorts and a tank top. And I feel very empowered to do that by the keto community, that I feel like you guys accept me the way that I am, and I don't think that you're ever going to get to a place where you imagine perfection, because it's like a fairy princess tale, right? That you're thinking you've attained. There's definitely a lot of compression clothes out there that help, and I'm thankful for the day and age that we live. If we're going to have the 1920s night later on this week, and there was a clear, definition of like what style should be and what it looks like, because we've all, bought a dress that kind of looks the same, I would think. But now it's like we define what is style. You look at the bathing suits, go around the pool. They look very different. Sometimes it's long sleeves. Sometimes somebody's wearing something with long pants, and it's all different things. However you interpret it. I don't follow a style that maybe fashion imposes, but what I feel the most confident in. But something that me and mommy had to sit down and talk about was a lesson that she taught me as a little girl that my grandmother used to say, and I'm gonna tear up. But she used to always say, pretty is as pretty does. And my mom would say to me, Rachel, are you gonna be pretty to people? Are you gonna treat them like they have value? Are you going to use loving words? Are your actions going to be sweet? Then it really doesn't matter what we look like or how we're received. Let's go be pretty to this world. And so that's what I want to do. And I hope that you find me pretty on the inside, and it doesn't, on the outside, hopefully only Joe finds me really the most prettiest, right? But I think that is the most important thing, and something that, I think Dr. Vega really emphasized is, that mindset. And if I say I'm ugly, you're looking at that person in the mirror and you're just always being so critical of them, then yeah, you always will believe that you're ugly. But if you know like who you are, and that you can be a blessing to others, it really doesn't matter.
And if you're still working on that, to add on even to Dr. Vega, and I meant to mention it when he was talking earlier, we have a saying, fake it till you make it.
Yeah.
If you're not there yet, I want you to fake it until you actually get there, because as he's talking about with your mind, if you keep telling your mind, I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it, it's going to follow through. But if you go in there with this negative attitude, then it's going to be a lot more difficult. So just, the other term I like is act as if. Act as if you're already 100 pounds less. Yeah. Don't eat that way. Just like act as if mentally.
And I will tell you that loose skin will not kill you.
No.
Right. I did have arm reduction surgery because it was a significant drop, and my 9-year-old grandson wanted to know why I had such strange arms. He liked to swing it back and forth. So because I had the money, I'd saved up for that. My legs look like curtains. All right. That's why I don't typically wear shorts. You'll maybe see me at the pool. That's okay. That's not going to kill me. What I was carrying underneath that loose skin was it an eventual death sentence. So I'll be sassy with my loose skin.
Anyone want to say something about this question? Because I want to go back to another question. This person that asked how they can influence somebody on changing. When the student is ready, the master will appear. It doesn't work the other way. And I have a couple of stories that happen all the time with our patients. The first one I already told you is when mama wants her daughter to lose weight. They start the process and they gain weight because it is not in their interest. It is in their mom's interest, and they want to rebel. The second one is when the wife comes with the husband because she wants him to lose weight. It never works. Never works. So what can you do? You can be an influence. And that's all we can do. We can influence people implicitly because they see the change. But beware, because it is said that we are the average of the 5 people that we surround ourselves with the most. So if today you are sick and you're overweight, the possibility that the people around you are sick and overweight is very high. And whenever you decide to change, is that people gonna come with you immediately? Of course not, because they live on this safe place where they wanna stay. And what normally happens is that they will start to ridicule you and criticize you. And you have to be ready. Don't be discouraged because of this fact, but because that's normal and this is how the law goes. The ridicule and the criticism is going to be in direct proportion to the size of your dreams. If you dream big, expect a lot of ridiculeness and laughter and people attacking you. And I would say, you should worry if nobody is attacking you, because by law, that means that you're not shooting up enough.
Yeah.
And implicitly, you're not asking or telling people to change. When they see you changing, it is painful for them to change. So what they try to do is to pull you back down and kill your efforts so they don't feel bad that they are not given the first step towards their change. But what happened? Two things could happen. One could be very sad, and that is that you are finally influenced by them and then you drop everything, which would be very bad. Or the second one is that you keep strong, you keep moving, and eventually after ridicule and criticism, there comes the third one, acceptance. You become an influence and people want to follow you. But remember, the first 2 steps are always tough, and we need to understand that. So don't try to change people. Just become an example, hold yourself strong, keep walking, and eventually people around, those 5 around you, will start moving with you eventually.
Never underestimate the power of planting a seed. So be consistent in modeling your life change. And then you'll know when they're ready to receive what you have when they start asking you questions. But people are watching you, even if they don't say anything, even if you think they're ignoring you. They see what you're doing, and they'll one day ask you a question. But never underestimate that power of planting the seed. So when I post stuff on my Facebook, I'm always posting about low carb, keto, about cutting the lifestyle of cutting carbs. I'm very consistent in that, and I've had people reach out to me. So you just keep on doing what you're doing, and you cannot. I got this from Mary. I can't drag you across the finish line. Right. You have to want to do it, right?
Mm-hmm.
I just, we'll finish with this. Do you realize we talk about being an example? We have 2 people on this cruise that have both been featured on the front cover of Women's World magazine for what they've had, the success they've had on keto. Like, that's like pretty amazing statistics. Like, how do you have two people on a cruise, 350 people, both on Women's World? They're an example for people.
Well, and it's interesting because they've probably had more influence on total strangers across the whole country. And, you know, your focus is on the 3 people that live in your house, right? And it's hard to get out of that mindset. But if you can be an example for other people and trust that the right person that, you know, if you got the same results, but another person was the one that influenced your family, would you be okay with that?
That's the hardest part.
If they still got well, but you weren't the one that brought them.
I wanted our daughter and our son to follow keto so badly. And we wanted him to raise Peyton like on a more keto carnivore lifestyle so badly. Guess what? They don't want to listen to us. You know who they listen to? Nisha Berry and Crystal Sykes.
And I'm okay with that.
That's it. And but you know what? If when she's afraid of should I feed the baby beef tallow and eggs, if she calls Nisha instead of us, does it matter if the end result is the baby is eating eggs and tallow?
Yeah.
So that's all that matters.
All right.
One last thing. For those of you who are going through that process and you want to influence somebody, there's a textbook that tells you how to do it in the proper way. It's called Changing for Good. It takes you through 6 different steps so you can finally influence somebody. But remember what Joe just said, it has to come from other place. It can't come from you. So it teaches you a strategy to be effectful with that. So you might get it. You might want to get it.
Before we close out, are there any last...